Everybody, Greg Pruitt here with the Idaho Dispatch, and welcome to all of you. It is October 20th, 2021, and this is the recap where we essentially cover some of the recent stories that we have had, and I'm hoping to do this a lot more because sometimes it just gets really busy, and so I'd like to do more of these videos and cover some of the stories a little bit more in depth than what you might read on the actual articles that we have. So, welcome to all of you, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So, first, before we get started too deep into that, if you guys want to make sure that just in case anything happens on social media, that you will still get our articles once a week. Every Monday morning, we send out an email updating. We actually might do this a little bit more often, but at least every Monday morning, we send out an email with all of our latest news articles. So for those of you who don't like to get on social media and you just want a weekly update, then you can go ahead and do that. We may update or, I guess, increase that frequency to twice a week. So there's not so much of a gap in between there. But be sure to do that. And then finally, be sure to sign up to become a subscriber with Idaho Dispatch. It's $2.97 a month. We've had a lot of new supporters that have signed up over the last, I would say, 30, 35 days. And we sincerely appreciate all of you guys and what you're doing. We're slowly, there's 3 different tiers that you can do, and we are slowly trying to. Facebook's giving me all sorts of crazy, weird stuff right now. But anyway, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and hopefully the lag is not too terrible. Let me know in the comments. But with those different tiers, we're trying to create some new incentives. And so, for instance, I believe what we are probably going to do is for those who are on the highest tier, which is $9.97 a month, you already get an Idaho Dispatch hat. And for those of you that have joined recently, we're trying to get those out. We ran out, so we've got those on back order. But we're thinking of doing something like, if we do an exclusive interview, then those who are at the $9.97 level a month would get early access to that interview or to maybe some other exclusive articles that we write. Now everybody will get to see it eventually, but you might get early access depending on what level you're at. And we are still working possibly on doing some sort of like quarterly hard copy newspaper type deal, a quarterly deal or something along those lines. And then in addition to that, hopefully here shortly also doing a PDF of all of our articles depending on who's a subscriber and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we're trying to work on building this as quickly as we can. And oh, by the way, some good news. We did purchase a vehicle. So we are working as fast as we can. Sorry, Facebook is giving me this really weird thing that I've never seen before on the stream, and the FPS is too slow and some other stuff. But anyway, sorry about that. It's just really confusing because it keeps popping up with this red thing. So anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Is we've got the vehicle purchased. We have a design, an individual that I know is helping us with the design of the dispatch wrap, so to speak. And because we actually have a white car, we bought a white car, and our logos are basically black and white. We can avoid like a full body wrap potentially. So that is what we are working on currently, is getting that wrap done. Hopefully here over the next 30 to 45 days, we'll have the wrap done and all this stuff, and then we'll show you guys the car. We're really excited about it. It's going to be pretty fantastic, and that's all because of you guys. You guys that are monthly subscribers stepped up, and other people helped pitch in some bigger donations to help us get this vehicle purchased so that we can have a moving billboard, and so that I'm not using my truck to drive across the state of Idaho to do stories, because that got very expensive very quickly. And so we tried to get a car that did not guzzle gas quite as much. So anyway, thank you to all our subscribers. Now, let's move on to some of our recent stories. One of the ones that we have worked on here in the last week is the Caldwell mayoral race. And it's interesting because there hasn't been a lot of press coverage about the Caldwell race. I think I saw the Idaho Statesman might have put something out today. but there hasn't been a lot of coverage. And I used to live in Caldwell. We moved out of there in the spring, and so I know a lot of people in Caldwell. I know the mayor, the current mayor personally. And so, we've had a lot of questions and concerns and comments and all sorts of stuff come in from Caldwell citizens. But it's been interesting because there hasn't been a lot of press about it, about the race. And there are five candidates, at least four candidates, or no, five. There are five candidates in total running for Caldwell mayor. And so we did a story, a couple stories. One was, and actually these were videos, several of them were videos, on issues that were happening in Caldwell and concerns that some Caldwell citizens have brought up. And one of those was the John McGee billboard. Okay, there's a billboard that's up in the city of Caldwell, and you can see these in our videos on Facebook. That was put up. That billboard is ran by a PAC, and one of the individuals in that PAC used to be a legislative assistant to Senator, when he was a senator, state senator John McGee, and she has publicly put her name out there on our page as being involved with the PAC. So I'm not disclosing anything that wasn't put out there publicly. And she has concerns, as do some other citizens that have contacted us about John McGee's past. And for those that don't know, it's a really long story. I don't want to get into all the details right now, and we've written articles about it, so you can kind of go back and read some more details. But he resigned back in 2012 as the state senator, as the Senate Majority Caucus leader, over allegations of sexual harassment. He was actually charged with a number of things, but he ended up pleading out to a number of things over the years. He also was charged with a DUI and a grand theft auto. And ultimately with that, I think he only ended up being getting the DUI, which turned into a withheld judgment. Anyway, it's a big long story as well. But there were sexual assault allegations, and there was a 45-page police report that has been put out. It's been redacted, where you can read some of the things that are attributed to John McGee. And ultimately, from that, he pled out to disturbing the peace, was sentenced to 88 days in jail, and I think he did 30 some odd days in jail. I can't remember the exact number, 34 or 5 or 9. I don't remember. But he did some time in jail over those sexual harassment allegations, and there's some very vivid and descriptive things that are said in that police report. To our knowledge, he never sat down with the detectives. To our knowledge, he never denied anything that was said in that police report, but we couldn't find anything. So there's been a lot of questions in Caldwell over I guess the Mayoral forum that I believe is taking place tomorrow, where no personal questions are allowed to be asked, and this is the only forum that the candidates are doing, to my knowledge. And so that is left before the election. And so that's some questions and accusations that from some citizens that the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce or anybody and others are trying to protect John McGee from having to talk about his past and his past actions. And that, in part, according to the people that we talked to with this billboard, was what is spurring some of this. I believe it's called stopjohnmcgee.org, and it talks a lot, or .com, and it talks a lot about his past and actions from his time as a state senator. Some people have come out in defense of John McGee and said he did his time in jail. It's time to move on. It's time to let him live his life. And then the people, in response to that we've seen, have said, "Hey, look, we're not trying to destroy his life, but he should never be the mayor," right? And so those two sides are kind of battling it out, I guess. And this also happened back in 2019, and now John McGee, who was resigned in 2012, ran for city council in Caldwell, so he's been a city councilman since 2019, so a couple years, and now Mayor Garrett Nancolis is stepping down and retiring, and so there's this big open race for the first time in over 2 decades for one of Idaho's biggest cities. And again, the press coverage has been very little regarding that race that we have been able to find so far. So while I was also in Caldwell this week, earlier this week, and it's all kind of running together. We also had somebody send us pictures of John McGee's signs, and the signs do not disclose who paid for the signs. So we reached out to the Secretary of State's office, and they confirmed that the signs were in violation of the sunshine laws, and that you can't just put somebody's name on a sign. You have to put on there somehow who is responsible for that sign. And so there's a whole bunch of pictures that people had sent us with what it looks like is that former state senator McGee had cut off the bottom portion of his signs from when he was a state senator, and he used them in 2019. He used them in this year, and the signs just have his name on it. There's nothing else on there, and so according to the laws, those would be in violation of the law, according to what the Secretary of State's office had told us. Usually, the signs you'll see them, they'll say paid for by, John McGee for Caldwell, treasurer so and so, or at least paid for by John McGee. And I believe maybe you can just use a website on the bottom of your sign, but it has to be something that indicates who is actually paying for and covering those signs. And so that was another thing that we had covered. One of the other stories that we talked about was a story about the former CBS 2 reporter Emery Moore. Some of you may remember, it's from an incident way back in April over an incident at the Capitol regarding Aaron Von Ellinger and his accuser, who the reporter had followed, and it turned into a really big story. And we ended up actually interviewing her because nobody had asked her for her side of the story. So we asked her, what her version of the events were. And all that to be said, she reached out to us about a week or so ago and said, "Hey, I've got this giant tumor, by the way, and ended up being cancerous, stage 1. And so, we did just a brief story updating you guys on, kind of her situation." And then we also did an interview. I don't know how many people saw it because Facebook didn't seem to really let this one go very far. Sometimes you'll see the organic reach, which means reach that it is just occurring naturally in people's feeds, is really high, and sometimes it's really, really low. And this one, for whatever reason, got really low reach, and maybe nobody cared. I don't really know. It's hard to tell with Facebook. But we interviewed the Libertarian Party of Idaho chairman, Jennifer Imhoff, and just sat down with her to talk about their party's goals and all that kind of stuff. And so, again, somebody will ask, well, why are you bothering interviewing them? Are you a libertarian and you're just trying to plug them? No, I mean, seriously, we will sit down and interview candidates and political parties all day long, no matter who it is, no matter how I feel about them personally. Our goal is to try and give you guys as much information as we possibly can. That's it. That's all I want to do, is try to give you information. And here's one political party, and we're going to be trying to work on setting up interviews with the chairman for both the Idaho Republican Party and the Idaho Democrat Party. And, the offer will be there. You don't see too many interviews from the mainstream media with these folks. And so our goal is to bring you guys as much news as we can about candidates, about political parties, and then you determine whether or not you like the information or not. Some people do, some people don't. That's okay. Our goal is just to give you the information as much as we possibly can. And then we were also, I believe, the first ones to let you guys know that there is a new Democrat gubernatorial candidate who is the Sandpoint Mayor, Shelby Rogenstad. And Shelby, I don't know if he's officially announced, but I was digging through the Secretary of State's election stuff looking for something else, actually, and just accidentally came across that Shelby Rogenstad had filed as a gubernatorial candidate for the Democrats, and his treasurer is listed as A.J. Belukoff, and a lot of you may not know A.J. Belukoff, but he was the candidate back in 2018 for the Democrat party. He did or still does, I believe, own CenturyLink Arena in Boise. So he's a fairly wealthy individual. So that is a big name that Shelby Rogenstad currently has as a candidate for governor at this point. So now there's two Democrats, and I believe seven Republicans. One of them dropped out in the summertime, but there are a bunch of candidates. In fact, to that point, we also ran an article on October 10th titled 2022 Idaho State Candidates for Office as of October 11th, okay, for the primaries only. And so that is, if you want to learn more about the candidates for the various parties, you can go to that article. And we have done our best to find social media sites, websites, and any interviews that we have done with those candidates, we've also posted in there. Somebody was asking, I think, about why we put the incumbents in there. So we could take the incumbents out, I guess, but we didn't want to cause confusion, because what we were trying to do was say, here are the candidates who have announced that they are running for office, and here's all the information that we know. So with the incumbents, there's a few people who currently hold office who we did not put their name in because they had announced they were not running, like Lawrence Denny for the Secretary of State. He has said that he is not running, so we didn't put his name in there. Governor Brad Little has not announced he is running, but everything we have heard says that he is running. But so since he's the incumbent and has not announced that he is not running, we just kind of put his name in there so people weren't like, wait a minute, is Brad Little not running, or is so-and-so not running? We figured that would cause way more confusion than just saying, okay, if they're an incumbent, we'll put them in there. So anyway, that we'll try to keep updated more and more as time goes along. And again, we have been reaching out. We have now reached out to Speaker Scott Bedke, to Representative Priscilla Giddings, and to Luke Malik. All three of those, we've reached out to all three candidates to request an interview. We do not have an answer from two of those candidates yet, and hope to have an interview with one of them here shortly. But, the Republican gubernatorial candidates, we're doing our best to reach out to all of them. And now that the Democrats have two candidates, we'll reach out to the two Democrats and try to sit down and talk to them and get information about their platform and what they want to try and do. And the Constitution Party has two candidates now. And so again, our goal is to just give you guys as much information as possible, to sit down and do some more in-depth interviews with the candidates rather than little 30-second blurbs that you might get on a TV news station or something like that. So anyway, that's all I've got for today, guys. I appreciate your time. Again, please get subscribed to the newsletter and to the Dispatch. I hope that $3 a month is worth it. Right now, I think we're at like 210 monthly subscribers. We'd love to get that up to 250 by the end of the year. That should be a very doable goal. Hopefully we can get a lot more. But help us find new people to subscribe to the Idaho Dispatch. And again, despite whatever personal biases I have, you can Google all sorts of stuff about me, right? Everybody, a lot of people in the political realm know who I am. It's not a secret. I'm not trying to make it a secret. But when it comes down to the Idaho Dispatch, when I write the articles, I do everything in my power to leave out any personal bias that I have. And I'd like to think that I could sit down with people I disagree with vehemently, okay, and have a discussion with those folks and put aside all of my personal bias and just ask them fair questions. That is what I hope that people understand, is that I'll sit down with anybody and interview them, and I'm not going to sit there and like try to pigeonhole them or trick them into doing an interview and then totally blasting them. I'm gonna, if you've watched any of the interviews I've ever done with candidates, I talk about why they wanted to run for what they're running for. We talk about their platform, and then we bring up controversial subjects. And I've done that with lots of candidates that we've sat down with, Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeehan and Ammon Bundy and Ed Humphreys, and Brandon Durst, and I've asked them questions about their past or past actions that they've taken, and asked them to explain and defend those positions. And so I try to follow that same format no matter who it is, and that's my goal. So anyway, with that, subscribe, get signed up for the newsletter. We appreciate all that you guys do for the Idaho Dispatch and spreading the word. So with that, I will sign off. You guys take care, and we'll see you later.